follow. But another thing that we should consider are the two basic principles of government. One is based on voluntarism and also on peace. A peaceful approach and voluntarism to try to improve society. But the other method, which has been around way too long, it's called the use of force and intimidation and the use of violence by governments. Now that's the kind that's been around the most, and some people who criticize those of us who believe in liberty and the Constitution, limited government, say, oh, you guys want to go back to the Dark Ages. Let me tell you where the Dark Ages are. It's tyranny. It's not only forcing you to run your lives as the government sees fit, what you can do with your life and how you can spend your money, but also we use that same principle to try to force other countries what to do. And I don't think it's any of our business what the other countries are doing. This concept that's been around for a while is called American exceptionalism. I actually believe in American exceptionalism. I believe there have been a lot of great things in this country. There was a time when we believed in sound money and free markets and contract and property rights and peace and following the law. But people who talk about American exceptionalism, it's been around probably since Woodrow Wilson. That means they assume that we have a special quality where we are so good that we can force other people to act exactly like we do. Even if we use force, we go overseas, we invade countries, we intimidate, we bribe them. If they don't take our money and they don't do what we tell them, we bomb them. That is not the way to win friends and influence people, let me tell you. Does exactly the opposite. It ruins the whole thing. It undermines everything. Now, if we want to influence the world, which I would like to do, I would like to move in the direction, which I believe this is what this campaign is all about, move in the direction of setting a standard, setting an example. Have free markets, have property rights, have a prosperous economy, and have a peaceful approach to the world. Trade with people, be friends with people, and then maybe other countries would want to emulate us and do it in a voluntary manner. I often use the example of what happened in the 1960s. I was drafted into the military in 1962. I was in for 5 years. I did not have to go to Vietnam, but the Vietnam War was a major experience for me personally as well as for this country. Because we were there approximately 10 years, 60,000 Americans died, thousands and thousands were wounded and injured, and still I see the veterans looking for help and not getting adequate help. But we took this position that it was our responsibility to get involved in a civil war and make sure that that country went in a certain direction. The French did that too for 10 years or so. Probably 1 million Vietnamese died, and it was tragic. It was spent a lot of money and ushered in a terrible economic decade of the 1970s. But we lost that battle. We didn't convert them. But what happened when we left? All of a sudden, instead of them all becoming communists, the whole Southeast Asia had the domino effect, which they warned us about. It did something else. It started looking at what we were doing, and they started talking to us. We started trading with them. Guess what? They became westernized. We're friends with them now. We invest over there. They come here and we do business with them. We're not on the verge of fighting a war with Vietnam. So just think of what was achieved in peace that was never achieved with 20 years of war. So important that we don't have the authority to do it, we don't have the constitutional and moral authority, and right now we don't even have the money to do it anymore either, and that's why we got to come home. We have done long time. We've had two forms of foreign policy. One, we try to bribe the dictators and we pay their way, and that works for a while. And those who don't accept our bribes, then we bomb them. And it really doesn't work. But we should recognize that people should have the right to determine, self-determination. And if there is a conflict, if there is a civil war, we shouldn't feel this compulsion that we have to get involved. Right now, we've been over in Afghanistan and Iraq and in that area, and Pakistan actually, worrying about those problems. I've been over there and I've seen the border between Afghanistan and Pakistan, and you can't define it. And guess what? We've spent lives and money and time over there, and you know what? I think we should spend more time worrying about our own wars than here in Auburn. Very clear about the foreign policy. There's no authority to be the policeman of the world, no authority to invade countries and try to go into nation building. And the Constitution is very clear about declaring war. We can't go to war just when the president decides. We can't go to war when they say, oh, we get our authority from the United Nations. Where did that ever come from? Can you imagine how much richer this country would have been if we hadn't fought a war since World War II? Because not one war was declared, not one war was outwardly won, and we have suffered from it, and now we're in a severe economic crisis. Just the spending of the last 10 years on the wars in the Middle East added $4 trillion to our national debt. And it has to be contended with. We have to pay on that. That is the burden. So the best way we can start cutting this is to bring together a coalition. Conservatives and liberals and moderates and independents, Republicans and Democrats, and say
we love you, Ron.
Is this working now? Sounds better? Okay, good. Where was I? End the wars, bring the troops home. Better than I know it myself. So, well, at least know the message. The message is all about liberty, and that's what we're all about, and that's what we have a shortage on. And unfortunately, if we don't change our way, we're going to be in a mess. If we allow our presidents to go to war without a declaration and all this spending and bankrupt this country, things won't be good. But where I'm encouraged is that people are waking up. Crowds like this are coming out. Some days I wish I could understand exactly why these crowds are 3 and 4 and sometimes 5,000 people coming out doesn't translate into more votes. And I'm just wondering why that happens, But one thing I know is the revolution is alive and well, and they will not stop us. This means that the government is diminished in size. If we allow our government to be the redistributor of wealth, the economic planner, and the system that is going to tell us how to run our lives and tell them how to run the world, it is only done at the expense of liberty. The larger the government is, the less liberty we have. I do not believe in any other way. That is why the goal is to shrink the size of the government. cutting spending in Washington? Aren't the other candidates talking about cutting spending? They are not. They might say the words, but they're not serious. They're not talking about real cuts. I'm talking about a $1 trillion real cut in the budget. They're talking about cuts in the proposed increases. There's a baseline budgeting that says over the next 10 years the budget is supposed to increase by $10 trillion. So if you cut the increases to $9 trillion, then, hey, look, we just cut $1 trillion out of the budget. I mean, it doesn't take, too much to figure out that there's a little bit of deception going on in this country.